Start us off, Carter.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting top of Capitol Hill. Hey, what are you doing, buddy? I'm singing my song. Hey, oh, shit. Did my secretary not get back to you? Dude, can we talk over here real quick? Hey, man, listen, we decided not to do Carter Explains Congress. We thought it'd be a little too, spicy for the mics, so my secretary was supposed to send you. I sent you an email and the whole thing. Oh man, yeah, I know, man. I'm sorry. Look, it's tough to fit things into the schedule. I really wanted to do it. I really needed the money, man. I know, man. I feel really like I can Venmo you like a little bit. Obviously we don't get ad revenue from episodes that don't exist. I really needed the money. I'm so sorry, man. Look, just look, I'll Venmo you a little bit, and like hopefully, like that can get you by for a couple days. Like I'll pay for the bus fare too, man. Look, I'm really sorry about this. Usually, Cast Pod Productions is a little more organized than this. Well, thanks, man.
That's a lie.
You
We're not
know,
more organized.
shush, man. Come on. Uh, yeah, you take care of yourself, dude. Thanks. Sorry about that, Kevin.
It's all
You
good.
know, it's really hard to get a job as a bill when Congress does nothing.
I need you to be honest because we're not using like a video call at all. Were you dancing for that too?
Yes,
Nice.
my head was swerving. I might have thrown my neck out.
I'm cool with that. You don't need your neck to talk,
Welcome,
probably.
welcome back to CastPod, everyone.
That's right. Welcome back to specifically the episodes of Castpod that is going to be a relatively mainstay series for us
Oh
for the
yeah,
next couple of months. Kevin and Carter talk football. We
woo!
got some
Yes,
more funny versions planned with Tom and Callum, but this is the more legitimate side of the football talk.
yeah. We realized we try to explain football as best we can to the Callum and by extension Tom, but those two, there's only so much information they can retain on football. It is a dense, spongy subject, so we figured hey, as often as possible, let's have a couple quote unquote serious episodes where we kind of break down what's happening in the league.
Yeah, I ideally this series is going to be at least monthly. If not weekly, it's going to be at least monthly of just recaps of previous weeks, big moments, things that we're looking towards for the future, things like that.
Right. And yeah, we are literally almost basically like a day and a half away from the start of the football season
Yeah,
on Thursday night, as we've discussed. The Kansas City Chiefs will be playing the Detroit Lions
I'm sorry.
for the first game of the season.
Sorry.
All right,
I just got a notification from the fantasy league. Kenny Mack nicknamed every player on his team Justin Tucker.
that man. I say this about a few people, but that man is on his own journey in life, and for everyone's sake, I hope he gets there.
Oh my god. Sorry. I couldn't handle it.
What a guy! What a guy! Um,
Um,
yes. So we are doing a brief discussion about the preseason and kind of the
yeah.
lead up to the season. Just general thoughts and general feelings.
Yeah, this
You know,
episode should be coming out the day Wednesday the 6th before so like first game of the season is technically tomorrow.
right. Yeah, so we are going to try and get some of our sizzliest takes in before the season starts to kind of just have it on record.
Yeah, it's I think I think it's nice to do a little bit of a pre post preseason but before the actual season.
Hmm. All right. Where do you want to start?
I think we should start with our I think we should start with things that we saw from our favorite teams. Mine being the Eagles, yours being the Bills. However,
Oh,
however, just hear me out. I don't
okay.
want us to do any predictions for it of what we see coming from them the upcoming season. Do I believe in like superstitions and jinxing things and anti-jinxing things? No. However, am I going to take a chance and say something and have it happen? I'm also not going to do that.
Hmm.
So I feel like that's a safe space to start. Just get our own personal teams recaps over with. Things that we saw, things that we liked, but not mention what we see from the future. And then we'll just dive around the league.
Sounds good to me.
All right, would you like to start with the Bills?
All right, where to start with the Bills? Here is what I will say first. It is never a good sign when the original they made it clear that the plan was to have the starters play one preseason game, and then they have to play the last preseason game. Um, off season was kind of it was and wasn't an overhaul off season. Like clearly, after getting your teeth kicked in such embarrassing fashion, you do realize like things need to change. And while
Mm-hmm.
that happened on the offense, it didn't happen on the defense. Watching the starting defense was a bit sobering. You realize, like, look, Tremaine Edmonds was not perfect, but the fact that he was a physical freak who could cover half the field,
Mm-hmm.
like, that was a load bearing linebacker. You designed an entire defense around, oh, we need a super athletic guy to just kind of hang around in the middle to handle like both the grunt work and the sexy pass catch or receiver covering work. Without that, you're like, okay, so we have Tremaine Edmonds who's coming off an ACL tear. We have uh, Christian Benford who is like a third, fourth round cornerback who wasn't even supposed to start. We have Kyer Elam who is actually like a very physically gifted man cornerback, but isn't very good in zone. And we're like, oh, he doesn't fit in the system, which I counter. You mean the system that got our teeth kicked in by the Bengals last year? Um, and two
Yikes.
safeties who are both very old and very injured. Micah Hyde is coming off a neck injury that kept him out for basically the entire year, and Jordan Poyer, the guy who famously the entire year was like, "This is my last ride with the Bills. I'm done after this. I want to go somewhere where they don't tax." Sorry, I would like your salary to go to Rhodes, but I digress. Um, and basically played the entire postseason like he had already packed his bags and only came back to the Bills because no one else would pay a 30-plus-year-old safety that much money. And I'm just like,
Fair.
oy vey. Where at least with the offense, I'm like, okay, the things that are good are still good. Diggs is still good. Josh Allen is still good. And then from there, they fundamentally understood we need to be able to run the ball. We
Mm-hmm.
just need to have a power running game. Like they basically rebuilt the entire interior of the offensive line. Osiris Torrance, the rookie, already looks great. They brought in Damian Harris, a grossly underrated running back from the New England Patriots, who is like a like threatens to get 10 to 15 rushing touchdowns a year on red zone carries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, at the bare minimum, we're not like we have more upside in terms of like we will not get stalled in the mud. Like if Josh Allen isn't completing short passes, we're not just going to be stuck. We can just run the ball. And a lot of it is like I'm hoping the offense can carry us this year. Like I feel like it will be like we might be a worse team in the regular season because our off defense will be less like sexy and getting turnovers. But in the postseason, we'll be better because we have more tricks up our sleeve for offense. The floor has been raised on the offense. There aren't going to be weeks where Josh Allen has a UCL tear and he literally cannot complete a 5 yard pass. And we're just like, well, we're stuck.
Mm-hmm. No.
So I'm more on the side of doomers for the Bills, but at the same time, yeah, but if Josh Allen's elbow is correct, that kind of just fixes like 90% of like your problems. It's kind of just
Mm-hmm.
like a nullifier.
Yeah. So it sounds like from what you're saying that it's not really a battle of like it sounds. I guess it's, the words I'm trying to say is it's more of a battle of the offense being able to outscore their offense as opposed to defense holding their own.
Yeah,
Would I be correct in saying that?
I think so. Like, and it's tough because I think, like, and this is, I hate to go into prediction territory, but like, for the entire NFL, I feel like defense is fundamentally changing. Like we talked about in our Super Bowl recap, how like Jonathan
That man.
Gannon, yeah, that man who is literally the bus is already coming toward him, and his shirt has already been grabbed. Like that style of defense where it's like, well, we're just going to have the best players possible, and we're going to go man to man against you. That just doesn't work anymore. And I'm worried that the Bills can't do that because they don't have the depth necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just have one defensive strategy. You need to have like 15.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can we do that? If one person gets hurt, the entire thing kind of just collapses.
All right. Now, here's a question for you on the Bills. It's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's technically a two-part question. Out of all the starters, who do you think is a guarantee keep? And if you had to cut one, who would you pick? Both offense and defense apply.
All
That
right.
doesn't matter. Just
All right. So, okay,
and
that's a
it's
good one.
exclusively starters, not backups, not anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Exclusively starters.
Well, okay. So I'm going to do. Okay. I'm kind of going to do a sleeper pick for starter because it's like obviously Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs go first, but that's like boring. I like. Look, at the end of the day, I don't really care about all this Stephon Diggs drama because he'll show up and work. He's a
Mm-hmm.
baller. And also, like, yeah, I'm also fucking pissed we lost to the Bengals. Like, I'm glad someone's mad that we haven't won a Super Bowl yet. Like one of the big problems I have with like this current administration, like Brandon Beane as our GM and Sean McDermott as our offensive coach or like our head coach and our defensive coordinator is like the lack of accountability when it really matters. Like we talk so much about culture, and it's like, yeah, well, when you let the Chiefs kick a fucking field goal with 13 fucking seconds left, like apparently it's nobody's fault.
Mm-hmm.
When you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and the Bengals just like literally throw a football down your throat like a 1940s cartoon, like apparently it's just nobody's fault. It just happens, and it's like, no, someone needs to demand accountability. And I'm like, good for you, Diggs. Anywho, so my sleeper pick for starter to keep is Gregory Rousseau. He is the defensive end. Like one of the big problems with the Bills is we just spent way too many draft picks on defensive like defensive role players who are not difference makers. If there is
Mm-hmm.
one guy who might actually be a difference maker, it is him. He is huge. I think he's like 6'6". He's built like a tank. Like I hate to invoke Bruce Smith, but it's like it is similar in the sense of like, what if you just draft a guy who looks like is like a Greek Adonis and go from there? Like he's huge and he's really fast. And there was one play in the preseason eh, where, as the defensive end, he just like cut off the bootleg. Like Kenny Pickett was supposed to bootleg all the way around and just had to stop because this hulking man who can run like a 4.5 just cut
Mm-hmm.
him off and he didn't know what to do. And I'm like, at the end of the day, this is a big man's game. And I'm like, yes, invest in the guy who's very fast and very big. And, people pointed out his stats dropped when uh, Von Miller went out, but he also had a high ankle sprain. If he's healthy, I think he can really, really crush it. Um, my one to get rid of would be Jordan Poyer. Again, maybe I'm just bitter because he's been very annoying about wanting to leave Buffalo, and he had this whole weird thing where he's like, I'm going to host my celebrity golf tournament at Trump's golf course. And then he's
Huh.
like, oh, people are mad? No, I won't. Just kidding. I'm doing it.
Yikes.
But I'm just like, again, I'm like, this defense has been built around Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer for this entire Josh Allen era. And if we were going to win a Super Bowl with them as our leaders, my stance is we would have won a Super Bowl already.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, you need to just accept that the defense fundamentally has to change. And as long as they're here, we're not going to. And I'm willing to give Micah Hyde a second chance because I'm like, well, you did miss a whole year because of your neck. So All right, hit me with your Eagles
All right,
feelings.
with Birds. So, pretty lackluster off preseason because they went
Mhm.
0-2-1. Um, Ties in preseason games are a little bogus in my opinion, but whatever. It's more it
Mhm.
makes more sense than having a tie in the regular season. Um,
Mhm.
Eagles went with a pretty different strategy for their preseason games where they played almost zero of their starters.
Right. Yeah.
Like with the exception of the running backs, because they were actively determining who is going to be their starters.
Mhm.
Um, they didn't really play anyone. Excuse me. Like the offensive line didn't start. Jalen Hurts didn't start. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, none of them started, which, in my opinion, makes sense. I think it's smart for them to be able to do that, and they're one of the teams that does mixed team practices, and they all played during those. If they didn't
Right.
do
So
mixed
many.
teams practices, I would say they had to play at least one game.
Right. Right. A lot of coaches have been saying, like, honestly, we kind of like the better. You get more like variety, and you actually play the starters.
Yeah, you play the
But
starters, you get like you said, you get more variety, you get more chances, and it's a lot more of a controlled environment. So, as opposed to the preseason games where things are kind of can get wild, and
right,
I'm not saying things don't get crazy at the practices with fights every left like every which way.
they literally had to stop the practice against the Colts
Yeah,
because
because of a
someone
brawl.
did something and retaliated by
Yeah,
like slapping
um,
the
one of
cookies.
the one of the defenders on the Colts, I forget who, hit who was it? Kenny Gainwell, a little too late for Jason Kelsey's liking, and Kelsey just trucked the dude. Which honestly, out of all the Eagles offensive linemen, I think I'd want it to be Kelsey. The last person I want it to be is honestly Jordan Mailata. I do not
Mm.
want Jordan Mailata has a huge rugby background, as everyone, most Eagles fans and decently into the NFL world know. But so it's like, and rugby is not as controlled as football.
I
So
still don't understand the sport.
yeah, so it I don't understand it, but it's like they're hitting each other as hard as they would in the NFL, but no pads are involved. So I know for a fact with that background, Jordan Mailata can take a hit and he can definitely give a hit.
Hmm.
And it's like how at the in the what was it, the NFC conference game when there was a huge fight with them in the um,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
49ers, and I forget who it was off the top of my head, but I think it was Kayvon Wallace got just chalked like it was nothing by one of the defenders, and the whole thing stopped when two people's present or one person's clear presence, and I think another person was close by, and Jordan Mailata was the person that was close by, and the person's presence who was clearly known to the San Francisco defense was Ndamukong Suh. And he's one of those people that's just like, dude, I do not want to take that chance. And I feel that way with a decent bit of the Eagles linemen. It's just like there's some people that you can get away with, but it's like Jordan Mailata, happy-go-lucky guy. If you're picking a fight with him though, I think you're just screwed.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and same with just their defensive line in general for the
Hmm.
Eagles. But they didn't really play any starters. They all hung out on the sides. Funniest moment of the preseason, in my opinion, is there was because they would interview the players on the sidelines and stuff, and there was an interview with Dallas Goddard, and he is facing the completely wrong way from the camera, and it wasn't like he was watching the field or anything like that. He was actively looking in the stands trying to find where the camera was, and they had to tell him to turn around. And that's that's part of the reason why I drafted him for our main league tonight is because I have this theory, and it's a pretty sound theory, that your elite level tight ends have a certain level of goober on them. Think about it. Travis Kelsey, George Kittle, Dallas Goddard. They're all top tier, like three of the top four tight ends, in my opinion. And they're all certain levels of goober.
It's just a goofy position because it's like you're a wide receiver, but you're also like
It
270 pounds.
Yeah, it's in my opinion the position where you're a little too small for a lineman, but you're not serious enough for to be a receiver or
Right.
a, like a
You're an
quarterback.
offensive lineman who took dance ballet. Like your mom made you do ballet
Yeah,
when you were like 8, and that
yeah,
just stuck. So you could never put on the weight to be a lineman.
yeah. But they're all hilariously like they're all a certain level of goober, and
Right.
like and they can back up their ability to play. But
Yeah, that's why like you always want one of the top 5 tight ends because it's just
yeah,
good vibe.
definitely. And it's like the issue I had with the Eagles preseason is that none of the starters played because they didn't get that like in-game first hit, you know.
Mhm.
And I believe Sirianni, the head coach, said that he wanted all the running backs to play a little bit to get that first hit. Like
Right.
he doesn't want it to be week one; he wants it to be now. And I feel like that's a very sound method. I just wish he did it for across the board, like tank a play, like the first play of a drive or something, just for Jalen to get that first sack and like get those linemen just like in the trenches for a first round on a more public setting,
Mhm.
just so it gets the rust away because like they haven't played since February, and when they played in February, it was an interesting game.
Yeah,
Quality
you can
Super
say that.
Bowl, quality Super Bowl. Things could be said about both sides and coaches, field conditions, everything, but I can't be too mad at that game because it was the best two teams in the league, without a doubt.
Right.
So I can't be too mad about that because at
Again,
least if it was like someone a lot more low tier, like say the Ravens versus the Giants for like somehow, I would have
that
been
would have been a wild twist.
in
I want to
that
see the reality where that happened.
yeah in that game I would have been like, why am I watching this, man? Like this is a mess. These teams aren't even the best. They just got lucky. Why bother? Anyway, back to the preseason for the Eagles. Another big spot for the Eagles preseason was defense. A lot of defenders jockeying for position and seeing what could happen. They're trying different combinations. People are getting different amounts of reps in. Um, the question of who's going to be that second safety was up in the air. Who's
Mhm.
going to be how deep are we going to go with the linebacker slash who's going to be what was up in the air. So a lot of good telling things with that. Someone who I thought definitely made a solid amount of reps as like I guess for lack of a better word like a sleeper pick for the team. Sidney Brown, the rookie at safety, I can almost tell you like every single defense play, I would say at least 75% of them, he at least sprinted to make it on screen for every single one of those the second somebody else got the ball, whether he be the person he's covering or on the opposite side of the field. That kid was there every single time.
Right, right.
Um, then you got some big rookie upstarts like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, who isn't a rookie this year, but he got some reps. Nola Smith, another rookie, got some very good reps in. You like you liked what you saw.
Yeah.
And I guess to answer my own question of who would be a keeper from the starters and who I would have to let go. I think one of the definite keepers for starters would have to be. Ooh, I think. I think I would. I think I would have to go with. Hmm. I didn't think about my own question. I thought about my own question, but then I'd start overthinking it.
I get that.
I think it would have to be either Jordan Davis slash Jalen Carter. They're both in for that like
Right.
first slot. It's not confirmed as of right now who's going to be there.
One of these Georgia players has to be
Yeah,
like a
but
perennial Pro Bowler.
they're both big dudes that are just breaking off. From what I've seen, breaking through offensive lines. I think the exact quote from I forget who with their practice was with the Colts was
Mm.
the Colts offensive line held them as expected, which was
Hmm.
not at all.
Right.
Which I think I think that's what we need. I'm not trying to dislike people like Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, like because they're definitely mainstays, but it's also like they're getting up there in age, and if we're looking for someone to keep, I feel like it's got to be one of these younger guys.
Right. The entire pitch for the Eagles is that there is another generation like right on the horizon.
And something that I've seen at least posted a bunch and stuff is they are the more veteran players are willing to teach
Mm.
and the rookies are willing to learn.
Right.
Like Jalen Carter said recently in an interview that Fletcher Cox calls him every single day. And they talk
Nice.
every single day. Not even about football. Like, it doesn't have to be about football, just in general. Which is definitely something that you like to see. Because that's not just, like, on the field we're teammates. That's genuine, like, looking out for each other. And not
Mm.
being, like, you were the first pick for the rookies this year, and you're not too big to be like you don't have a big enough ego to not ask for help with just anything.
Right. And like obviously there are some pretty like there is a reason why Jalen Carter fell, but I do think having like such a veteran presence on this team is huge because it's like it's so much easier to like get into these guys' head like, hey, we're all adults now, and this is like an adult thing. And also,
Yeah,
we were just in the Super Bowl. Do you want to be the loser who like makes it unfun for everyone? Like the vibes are good. You want to screw this up? And
yeah,
I think that just helps with like the whole culture element of it to get these guys serious about like keeping their noses clean and like working hard.
yeah. And you see a lot of like, especially with last year's defensive rookie, like main defensive rookies, Jordan Davis and N'Kobe
Mm.
Dean. Of they're not they're helping out the new Georgia rookies, but they're also not asking for help from the more veteran players from them.
Mhm.
And they're it's a lot of reports have been they're taking more leadership roles. They're doing this. They're taking more leadership roles. They're showing
Mhm.
these guys the works. And that's something you just want to see. Like doesn't have to be your favorite football team, but you want to see that on a team because that's genuinely like good teammateness.
Right. I like it.
All right. Now let's go around the league. Uh,
Well, I had an idea to start our let's go around the league.
hit me.
I want to hear two teams you are rationally confident in.
All
Like two
right.
teams who you don't like you think are going to sneak up.
Wait, am I picking the sleeper teams now, or am I picking like teams that I'm pretty sold on? Like sleeper teams are more like they're going to be more controversial. They might sneak their way into that last wild card spot and do decently well. Or are you talking
I would
like
say that.
I'm confident this person can at least win their division and then from there? Because that's
I would say
that's two different
teams
picks
you
for
wouldn't
me.
expect. I would say teams you're not expecting to come up in conversation.
Okay. Um possibly possibly hot take on So like the two teams that I would say have good chances, but one might not be recognized, would be like the one of the options, the one that you weren't talking about, I mentioned, is Jacksonville
Mhm.
and the Jets. I don't think they're sleeper teams. I think they have logical standing. If I had to go more sleeper teams now that we're preseason has happened, a lot of movement of players has happened. Everyone's down to their 53-man rosters.
Yes,
Um, I think you can't afford to sleep on the first team I'm going to say is Pittsburgh. I think they did.
oh wow, I didn't think you were gonna pick, this was mine.
Yeah, I think they're solid. Like I think they made some solid moves. I don't think they did anything too crazy, but if you think about it divisionally, they have a solid chance.
Mm.
And give me 1 second. I keep forgetting some of the divisions. So yeah, Pittsburgh's with Cleveland, Baltimore, and Bengals. I wouldn't say they're significantly better than the Bengals. So
Right.
if if they get lucky, they go 1-1. Worst case scenario, they go 0-2 against the Bengals. But Cleveland and Baltimore, I think Baltimore is one of the more overhyped teams in the league.
I keep going back and forth on them.
Like they have good players, but I feel like they're missing something. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's coaching, I don't know if it's ownership, I don't know what it is, but I feel like they're missing something. Um,
yeah, I
yeah,
my stance with that is like I think the Bengals and Ravens will come on late in the season, which gives the Steelers a chance to sneak in.
yeah,
Because like the Bengals have not had their starting quarterback practicing for about a month,
yeah,
and the Ravens are doing an entirely new offense that is fundamentally night and day from what they've been doing. So I think both of them can come into the season very rusty and very clunky and go like 2-2 to start the year. And I think Pittsburgh just has that like institutional stability to like get ahead of them. And
yeah.
like I'm not a big Kenny Pickett guy, but he is good. He's competent. Like you watch those
He's
last few Big Ben
he's a
seasons.
solid backup fantasy quarterback.
Exactly. And what they had was less than that in Big Ben for those couple years. Like Big Ben was so fucking bad and we
Mm-hmm.
grossly underrated. Like like they have an actual like functioning human body playing quarterback now.
Yeah. Plus, I think they definitely get a schedule bonus
Mm,
because one of the like outside of their division, the other like full division they play is the AFC South,
right.
which is joke land, and then they're also playing Patriots, Cardinals, Packers, Rams. Like they've got Raiders. Like they've got some.
Hmm.
It's not a stupidly easy schedule, but it's definitely a schedule they can sleep like sneak up on you, and then it's gonna be like not the exact situation that the NFC South was in last year, where it's like who's gonna get the last spot. It's gonna like because they're all like pretty much even. It's gonna be like, all right, Bengals have been dominating the division. No surprise there. Oh wait, Steelers are that sixth seed, huh? That could be
Hmm.
that could be interesting. And then
Right. Right.
I would say my other more sleeper ish team. Honestly, I'm kind of so I don't know if this is would be considered a sleeper team, but Detroit, the Lions.
Hmm.
I don't know if they're be considered sleeper, but because they're kind of making waves now, but also they're with the always stable Vikings. The
Right.
everyone loves Justin Fields way more, in my opinion, than they should, and the Packers with Jordan Love starting his 15-year career before he goes to the Jets.
That would be very funny if the
If they
Panthers
did
had.
it 3 times in a
That's,
row,
it has to. Like we need to get whoever's going to be the next president on that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I want to believe in the Lions, but again, they're the Lions. I
that's the
refuse to
thing.
believe in the Lions
That's
until they actually get to the playoffs.
that's what makes them the sleeper team, in my opinion, is because they're just the Lions.
Right. I
And
do think as their first game gets closer and they have to play the Chiefs, even with the Chiefs' injuries, people are like, guys, it's
it's
the
still the
Lions.
Lions, yeah. And it's
You
not
have to
like,
fight. We do this with the Chargers every year.
yeah. And it's not like they're playing against the 49ers where it doesn't matter who the receiver is or who the quarterback is. They've got good receivers and running backs that they can make things work. They're playing Patrick Mahomes and crew.
Right.
So like the second the Lions defense lets up even just a little bit, Patrick
And they weren't
Mahomes is
very
going
good
to
to begin
see
with.
that and just exploit that and make them look stupid.
It could go actually very badly.
But I'm excited for the first game of the season. I'm
Oh
excited to
yeah,
put
it'll
it
be
on
fun.
the TV. All right, who do you think your sleeper teams are?
All right, this one's gonna sound wild. The Patriots.
Really?
Yeah.
Explain.
Okay.
All right.
So you know how I picked Saquon Barkley very, very early in fantasy last year, and
Yes.
people questioned it. It's because they went from Jason Garrett to Brian Dable. That is a night and day coaching change.
Correct.
Jason Garrett, who was so confident in his offense that he quarterback sneaked on 4th and 7 to make sure they didn't get a safety. They decided, like, that's how confident he was. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they did not have an offense last year. Like, they literally were trying to implement an offense that they had never run before, that no one in the NFL was running before or running currently. Like, they were trying to do the zone blocking thing that Sean McVay was doing, that Sean McVay gave
Sean
up
McVay.
on.
Yeah.
Um, and basically, like, it got so bad that Mac Jones literally forced to talk to his coaches from Alabama to be like, I need guidance here. Like, again, is Bill O'Brien a great coach? No, but he's a competent coach. The bare
Mm-hmm.
minimum of raising the floor from unprecedented disaster to bare minimum competence could be night and day. And I believe I believe Bill O'Brien will at least be like, hey, what if we build an offense around what, like, hey, you know how Mac Jones was like this guy who would sling it around to like 4 wide receivers on any given play? What if we just try something similar to that? Why are we trying to make him something he's not? I think, and I'm saying like their offense last year was an unmitigated, unprecedented disaster. They still won 8 games.
Yeah.
They were one under 500. Like, and I guess my definition of a sleeper here is also because like for all the heat Miami and the Jets are getting, it's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers, who actively looked like he didn't want to play football anymore last year, with a weak offensive line and like another historically cursed franchise, and the Miami
Yeah.
Dolphins, who like, and
They're
I
gonna get
just drafted Jalen Waddle,
yeah.
so
Miami
I'm
Dolphins with Jalen Waddle,
fancy.
Tyreek Hill, and a quarterback that has his brain scrambled.
Who like actually probably shouldn't be playing the sport anymore.
Oh man,
Um,
it happened once, and I said he was done, and then it happened a second time, and I'm like, dear Lord, he's going to die on
and
the
then a
field.
much quieter third time,
Yeah.
but it was quieter, so no one said nothing. Um, and I don't know if this counts as a sleeper team because they actually made the playoffs last year. The Seahawks, I think they're going to
I
be first
think
in their division.
they barely made the playoffs, so I think that would be considered a sleeper team.
Right. Like they had a lot of injuries on defense. That problem's fixed. They had a few injuries on offense. That should be fixed. And also, like, they have Geno Smith another year in the offense, two great receivers. They
Mm-hmm.
add Jackson Smith Njigba, who like was probably the best wide receiver in that class, and we just underrated him. Like they
He's
like I actually think it's all upside for them,
yeah,
which is funny because their quarterback is Geno Smith, who's like 32.
yeah. He's up there. He's arguably he's not arguably, birth certificates are a thing, but he's definitely one of the oldest quarterbacks in the league. clearly behind Aaron Rodgers, but above most of everyone else.
Right. Who arguably still has like developmental potential. And also that's also a dig at the 49ers. I just do not believe in them this year whatsoever. I'm sorry, like at some point if you just refuse to get a even like if you refuse to get a quarterback, I'm just out.
The
Like again, we've done this
the
song and dance.
Cinderella
Draft a
story's done.
small guy. Yeah, no, we've done this before. This is Baker Mayfield 2.0.
Oh my
He's a
god.
like I'm tired of small guys with pop gun arms getting carried by skill position players. Like between them and the Falcons, I'm like we need a federal ban on the Falcons and 49ers signing or drafting any talented skill position player until they figure out their quarterback position because it's ridiculous. You have like 12 Ferraris and the owner of the house is an old granny who only goes out on the weekends. Like
Yeah,
you're
no.
wasting like maybe Trey Lance was never going to work out, but at least that was an idea. At least you were shooting for the stars. Now you've given up and are settling for sticking on this sad little planet.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I am very passionate about like the Brock Purdy cult is driving me insane.
I
That's one
can
thing I just got to get out of my system.
I can respect I can respect the Colt for the last season. Dude's making a killer run. They lost two quarterbacks. Kids showing up to every single day, like, and just
Mhm.
doing his job. But when you have arguably one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league, and if you have the offensive weapons, you got Christian
Right.
McCaffrey, you got George Kittle, you got Ayuk. I mean,
Arguably the best running back, a top 5 tight end,
oh, I would say top
arguably the best
three.
tackle. Yeah,
Yeah,
top 3 tight end, top like 3 offensive tackle. And then between your wide receivers, like I'd argue Debo Samuel at his
yeah.
peak is a top 10 NFL player.
Oh, I can somewhat agree to that.
And
But
you can't, this is the best you can do at quarterback because you don't want to. I'm sorry. I don't want
yeah,
this to turn into me telling the Shanahan tree to fuck. But like, I am so tired of this like offensive genius. But anytime you like need to get a quarterback, you're just like, I don't want to.
yeah, no, it's literally kind of like the same situation as Miami, I guess is the best way to describe it,
Right,
where the quarterback just has to hold the ball enough to throw it, and somebody will get it somehow.
right.
And
And at least Tua had the
that's the
pedigree coming
difference.
out of college.
Yeah. And that's the difference between like the Dolphins and the 49ers versus the Chiefs.
Mhm.
If you look at the Chiefs like running backs and wide receivers, you're kind of like unless if you're like super into it, you're kind of like who?
Right.
With the exception of Travis Kelsey.
Right. It really is kind of insane that
Like
they lost Tyreek Hill, still won a Super Bowl, and they're basically doing the exact same thing
yeah,
again.
because like there's that Travis Kelsey Patrick Mahomes connection, but Travis Kelsey is like Patrick Mahomes is still just that good.
Oh yeah.
And for you can't say the same for 49ers. If you take away all of Brock Purdy's weapons, if you take away Tyreek
Collapse.
Hill and Waddle for Tua, what's going to happen?
Right. If you take one of them away, the entire operation falls apart.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that annoys me because it's, everyone's like, "Oh, Brock Purdy won in this incredible run." It's like, no, they traded for Christian McCaffrey at the exact same time that Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot. I
Yeah.
wonder if that was the slightly more critical part of this.
Mm-hmm. All right. Here.
It's that's my gripe. I just need to get that out of my
Yeah.
system.
No, I feel it. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to
Hell yeah.
once again still leave out the Eagles and Bills for fear of jinxing things.
At least not until after week 1.
Yeah. We'll let week 1 happen and then we'll recap things, but I still will refrain from possibly jinxing or anti-jinxing things with the Eagles. Don't want to take any chances. We'll go division for division. We each have to name who the worst is, who we think the worst is going to be, and who we think on the leagues that we don't think that don't have our teams, so both East
Right.
leagues. we're gonna
Yes, I
name
like.
who the worst is gonna be, and then for the North, South, and West, we're gonna name who we think the division winner is going to be. And
I like.
you get one statement to make your case slash clarify your point, whatever you want to call it.
Gotcha.
All right. So just out
I like.
of the convenience of the list on the websites, who is going to be the worst of the AFC East?
The AFC East.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna sound wild, but the Miami Dolphins.
I was thinking you were going to say that. I'm going to say Patriots.
I think this house of cards is going to collapse the minute they don't have a quarterback.
The the Patriots are the only team, in my opinion, that doesn't have some form of star value that can hold their own and keep them from sinking.
Honestly, not a bad take.
All right, AFC North. Who do we think is going to be the best, and why is it the Bengals?
I'm gonna go Baltimore Ravens.
Really?
It will start slow, but once the offense clicks, it will look insane that they built a run-heavy offense around Lamar Jackson and didn't just let him sling the ball around the yard.
Yeah. I'm sticking with Bengals. They've been a top tier team the last couple of years. I'm not saying this is going to be their year, but they're built. And who's going to be the worst?
The Cleveland
Oh,
Browns
it's
only
the
because,
Cleveland Browns.
oh yeah, if only because it's morally reprehensible for anything else to happen, but also because they're a cursed franchise.
Definitely cursed franchise. Not even close. All right. AFC South.
Easy, Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville is my pick too.
Yeah, the I used to question whether or not Trevor Lawrence was that
Mm-hmm.
guy, but I am convinced he is the promised prince now. He will lead them to a surprise AFC conference appearance.
That's very close to what I was gonna say. I was gonna say Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson year two.
Yes, this is basically his second year with a real coach.
He's got a
Um,
very real coach, and Calvin Ridley's back too.
right.
He's got some.
I am
He's
so
got
mad I didn't play fantasy. It actually makes me like on spin.
all right.
Worst team,
Worst
easy.
team.
Houston Texans.
Ooh, I was gonna say the Titans actually.
Really?
I think I think they've been a contender a little too long. I'm not saying that the
Really?
I'm not saying the Texans and Colts aren't gonna be bad. I think Jacksonville has like a clear shot.
Hmm.
But my statement for the Titans is 100% over overhyped and disorganized. So like they're going to be doing their thing with I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Like they did a lot of building. They have Derrick Henry, but it's not Derrick Henry year 1 or even year 2. And they have D Hop, but D Hop is up there in age, and people are going to be ready, especially their own division. Like Texans, Texans and Colts clearly aren't going to be the best. That's a fact. But
Yeah,
they they drafted well, in my opinion. They drafted better than the Titans.
they did. Okay. This one will probably be the one we talk a little more about, but you're right. I think the bottom needs to fall out of Tennessee, but the problem is they're one of those franchises that's slightly too competent to just completely bottom out, and it will cost them even more in the long run.
Yeah, and
Whereas the Texans, my stance is they didn't want to draft CJ Stroud. The administration clearly wanted to draft Will Anderson, but the owner was like, no, 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 no. I'm not going another year without a quarterback.
yeah,
So they traded away all of their
yeah. They
depth.
definitely traded deep.
And I think that's just going to create this weird resentment that will hurt the team in the long run.
Yeah, but also here's my thing about like the Titans. Besides the fact that they're gonna be like people know them already versus
Mhm.
them. Colts pretty young team, young and hungry. Texans pretty young team, young and hungry.
Titans,
Titans,
old and tired.
pretty old team. Being young and hungry, maybe a little bit of a question mark.
I see. I really like your take on this. I think it's very smart, and I want to believe it because I hate the Titans. The Titans are a source of madness for me over the last few years, and also were the responsible for my last like actual football meltdown that convinced me to stop having football meltdowns. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, and according to this list I found online for Sharp Football Analysis, posted this past week, like the Jaguars have the hardest schedule for the division, but that's not saying much because they're pretty built now. The team
True.
after them is the Titans. And then you have Texans and Colts significantly lower.
Right.
Anyway, spent way too much time on the AFC South. That could be its own
Yeah, that's
topic.
fine. It's a weird franchise, or it's a weird division.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this one will be really fast.
AFC West, why is the Chiefs still the best team? And the answer is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Until Patrick Mahomes fails, it's just inevitable.
Yeah. Once, if him and Travis Kelce get hurt at the same time, that team I don't think will get more than 3 wins.
Yes. But at least one of them's healthy for now.
Yeah.
Literally just bet Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes for Super Bowl winner and MVP for the next 6 years, and it'll probably pay out at least 2 out of 4 times and get you your money
Oh, yeah.
back.
And who do you think the worst is going to be? Because I feel like some takes can be made on this one.
It's so tough. It would be very funny if it was the Chargers, but I think it's going to be the Raiders.
I was going to say the Raiders too. I thought I was going to have the individual take on it being the Raiders.
Damn. Like here's my one sentence hot take. Like I don't even think the Broncos are going to be good, but again, talking coaches,
Yeah.
just changing from Nathaniel Hackett, who was literally only hired to bring Aaron Rodgers in and then he'd do that, to going to Sean Payton is enough to at least get him to bare minimum competency, and they can figure it out over the next few years from there.
Yeah, there was also that, and I feel like they were one. I think I mentioned it in our postseason video. They made some pretty early postseason moves
Mm-hmm.
on players that I think puts them a little bit above the Raiders.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, AFC East. Who is going to be the worst? Just the worst.
Commanders.
Yeah,
I just, I'm glad, like, this is year one of the rebuild. Getting rid of the owner is the
yeah,
rebuild. They'll figure the rest out from there.
yeah. Year one of the rebuild is definitely going to be rougher the like than where the Giants are. Brian Dable, for example,
Hmm.
really turned them around. All right, NFC North. Who will be the best?
Gonna go Packers.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're just going to be a surprise team. They've invested a lot in young talent. I do think there is a sort of like, I think getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, who just felt like this weird cloud over the franchise,
Almost the
will
darkness, if you will.
exactly. It, that will get them enough to get a small division win in a tight division.
Yeah, I would say the Vikings. Like they're not the
Mm.
crowd favorite, but they're not a bad team.
It's funny because for worst team, I'm going to say the Vikings because
Really?
I think they are going to have they're my version of Tennessee where I'm like the bottom is going to fall out. They tried, it failed, and hopefully
Let's
like
rebuild.
their effort, yeah, their big effort will be to convince Justin Jefferson that it's worth staying around.
Mm. Mine for the worst is going to be the Bears.
Not
Just
not a controversial pick.
not
Pretty
super
straightforward.
controversial. Justin Fields isn't as good as everyone says he is.
I really like him. I want to believe, but yes, there is a reality where he's that good.
Yeah, there's two quarterbacks that I find very overhyped comparatively to everyone else out of the other 32,
Hmm.
and it is Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson's overhyped, but he's able to back it up.
Yes,
I
when it's go time, he shows up.
Yeah, I don't think Justin Fields has that same abilities.
Someone described it very well as like the way they just refused to throw the ball with him felt like, oh well, we're trying to trade him, so let's not give any like let's just make him a mystery box. Is he good at throwing? Is he not good at
Yeah.
throwing? Who knows?
All right, and then uh, NFC South, the real interesting division,
God, God,
the
I.
closest division last season.
The New Orleans Saints best only because I refuse to support the Falcons until they get a real quarterback. It is outrageous they're wasting this many skill position players. But the Saints at least like still have enough of the remnants of the Drew Brees era,
Mm-hmm.
and combined with an actual NFL quarterback, like they'll get to like they can get to the playoffs. I'm not expecting them to win a game though.
Yeah, this is in my opinion the closest one for me.
Mhm.
Trying to decide between the Saints and the Falcons. The
Right.
Saints made some smart moves this offseason. I would say smartest moves of the division,
Hmm.
but Falcons drafted the best. However, Desmond Ritter.
Yeah. Again, I think I said it. If I was the Falcon, like if I was a Falcons fan, and even if you think he's a little overrated, is night and day from Mariota. I love all the Eagles fans being like, "Oh my god,"
Uh,
as Marcus Mariota cannot physically throw a ball more than 6 yards.
if we're
Uh,
talking, yeah, if we're talking biggest upsets of the preseason, which we didn't tell, Marcus Mariota did not show up to play.
the man had nerve damage in his hand that made it impossible to like feel a football in his hand,
Yeah.
and he has not gotten better since. That man made my fantasy nightmare, and I want to be nice, but fuck him. Um, yeah, I refuse. Like if I was a Falcons fan and I could have didn't, I would go full French protest. I would hire a backhoe operator to take the owner's cars and stack them on top of each other. I'd have utilities cut off to his house. I would make a scene.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Um, Worst team.
Worst team's Tampa Bay.
See that I want to agree with that because it's probably going to be that they're clearly like we won the Super Bowl, now let's go get one of the big quarterbacks. But the Carolina Panthers look so bad in the preseason. I'm like, what is the end game here?
See, they might show up for it, maybe. Who knows? But
Okay, that's fair.
they also have, so once again, Shark Football Analysis article from this week of who has the easier schedule versus harder schedule. The out for like one being the easiest, 32 being the hardest. Panthers have 5, Buccaneers have 23. That's a significant difference.
Okay, you know what? You're pivoting me back to the because it's the difference between the young team who at least are fighting for a career versus the old team of like wash ups who are either content with their one Super Bowl ring, get traded to a contender, or the Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield,
Yeah.
who is not going to happen.
Yeah, my statement on like the Buccaneers would be they have Mike Evans, but
Mike
like
Evans
kind
will be
of just kind of just shrug and be like Baker had to compete for the starting.
the fact that it was a competition is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
A take I liked that I just heard today was the worst thing that could have happened to Baker Mayfield was winning that Rams game because he could have
True.
just went off into the sunset, been a commentator, like a social, like a public guy, and people would have given him a free pass because it's like, hey, you got drafted by the Browns. It happens to Brady Quinn too. It happens to a lot of prospects with upside. Instead, now he has to play another year where he's going to get his team kicked in on the bucket.
Oh, yeah, they're not having a fun time. All right, NFC West, last division.
Best team, Seahawks, because they have an actual quarterback.
I would say that I would agree best team is Seahawks, but not because they have an actual quarterback, but I think they made a lot smarter offseason moves.
Mm-hmm.
And worst
Right.
team, and why is it the Arizona Cardinals?
See, I want it to be the Rams because it would be so funny if the Rams steal Caleb Williams from the Cardinals. But the Cardinals are actively tanking. It is very public. They hired the guy who burned out, like blew the Super Bowl for the Eagles, arguably.
Yep.
Gave the least inspiring speech in NFL history. Their starting quarterback is not going to play for at least 6 weeks. They got caught. They got caught talking to their old GM, who got or
Yep.
like a member of the franchise. Like people don't remember that investigation because no one cares enough about the Cardinals.
It's
They
the
got a
Cardinals. It's if it was like a medium to well
yeah,
doing
not even the
team,
Patriots.
like
If it was the Bears,
if it was the Bears, the Steelers, like that middle of the pack team, different story. People would have cared. Not
but
anymore.
who
It's the
it's
Cardinals.
Cardinals. And I love that they got a second first round pick from the Texans just to cover their bets in case they get that first pick confiscated.
Yep.
We'll have one of the top five picks.
Yep. Uh, my statement on the Cardinals is clearly so who drove to work? Who took the bus? We're looking for a team of killers. Like, to be put on blast like that as a head coach, and it could be a rousing speech if Gannon showed an ounce of charisma. That dude had like a -5 charisma roll for that speech. Like,
Yeah,
and it wasn't
the
like
place
a
gained numbers.
he's just deadpanning this and people are still reacting. The room was silent. It
How do
was
you coach a game after that? It's like that, like, and I feel bad for comparing it. Like the guy who was playing Oregon and lost 60, coach who cried, and like I feel bad because it's like imagine doing a whole off season just to have that happen first week. But it's like, how do you keep coaching
yeah.
after that? Where it's like from the start you are so out of your league, so like the ship, it's not a rudderless ship because that would suggest there was ever a rudder. Like, how do you come back from that?
I would 100% rather suffer like if I was in like the worst team in the league spot, I would rather have like a humiliating loss where the coach is crying during the press conference on how we're bad and we can do better than a coach that's trying to give a speech that nobody's reacting to.
I don't. I genuinely don't know what I would do if I ever gave a speech that had that little impact. Like,
Like,
I think I would just start like I would triple my runs a day, hoping I could trigger a cardiac event and just like get out that way.
yeah, literally, like, there is like if you're like a quarterback coach or like not even like a coordinator, like specifically like a position coach, you can kind of get away with it. And how he got away with it on the Eagles is purely because Sirianni was there, and that dude has passion.
Yeah, that guy has a
Brian,
weird charm that makes people like him.
yeah, Brian Dable has a passion. Doug Peterson, passion.
You have to have something, and he has nothing.
Even Shane Steichen, passion. Gannon, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I just want them to not get the first overall pick because like you can't be this egregious with it and get the pick. That's unfair.
yeah.
Like, and again, Lovie Smith's not a great coach, but he at least had the fire in his belly to be like, you know what? Fuck ownership. I'm going for this.
That is the perfect transition for what I was gonna say next. Who do you think gets the Lovie Smith Award of they're not gonna win. They might not even do great, but they're gonna have some like some big wins against some big teams, and maybe even just block somebody from being in the playoffs like that.
Oh, what is like the Lions screwing the Packers over last year?
That was going to be my example. The Lions screwing the Packers out. They weren't going to win. Like if they won, they wouldn't have been in anyway.
Mhm.
And when they won, they wouldn't have been anyway. But if they lost, the Packers would have been in. So they're going to screw them over. It's
That feels like the role the Titans are going to play this year. There is going to be a game in December where they just play rugby ball, run the ball 50 times, just make it a mud match, and some good team is going to miss the playoffs because they didn't account for a 35 carry Derrick Henry game in late December.
mm-hmm.
Like like if the Seahawks or the Dolphins miss the playoffs, it's going to be because in the last month of the season, the Titans were like, screw it, culture win.
Yeah. Here's here's where I say the Green Bay Packers. They're definitely like they're obviously not my pick for the favorite in the division, but I think they're gonna have. I think if the Lions are on that cusp of being in the playoffs, and hold on, let me see when they play, just so I don't like so I don't assume wrong, but they play Lions in week 12, and then other week 17 and 18 are both division games. I feel like if they want to screw like if they want to screw like the Lions or the Vikings out of the playoffs, they're going to do those December games. They're going to like November December games of they're just going to wake up, screw over everyone else, and it's it's literally week 12 Lions, 13 is Chiefs, 14 is Giants, but then 15 and 16 are the Buccaneers and the Panthers, and then it's Vikings and Bears. And I feel like they can have a villain arc at that time.
I would love that. I think Jordan Love has earned that after the like hoo ha he's had to deal with over the last few years.
Yeah, he's he's got the energy. I feel like they can have an. I think they could have the villain arc.
I dig it. I dig that one a lot. Um, all right, what are some last? All right, rapid fire. What is your hottest take? What is like the craziest take you could possibly have that's going to happen this season?
Ooh, are we talking like individual player or like team level?
Let's say individual player. What is like what is a player? What's an interesting thing a player can do that people expect?
I think. Ooh, I'm gonna I'm gonna stick on a quarterback level to try and keep it simple to for the wrap up.
Mhm.
I think uh, hmm, for lack of a for like a more like possible take, Trevor Lawrence shows up to play.
Right. Yeah, he's in
He
the end. He gets MVP votes.
he's not gonna he might not win MVP, but it's when you see like the runner up of the top four or whatever, his name's gonna be listed there.
Mhm.
And even I guess more bold take in my would be Anthony Richardson does what Andrew Luck did.
Gets his team to the playoffs.
I maybe not that well, but he's gonna have. I think he has the potential to make them have a winning team.
Okay. I want to. I really like
At,
Anthony Richardson. I want to
yeah,
believe in that.
out of all the rookie quarterbacks and like who they're on and what they have to work with, I think he doesn't have the best, but I think he has the most potential to be like the guy of the team.
I
Like
like.
it's clear that the Texans and Panthers are rebuilt around Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, but they're not. built yet.
Right. This is like the last year the Andrew Luck window would have been open. So it's like, well, you'll get a lot of Sage veterans to help you get there.
Yeah.
Um, my two are one somewhat sensible but crazy, and then one kind of crazy. One is I think there is a very good chance that Christian McCaffrey will break the touchdown record this year. He will break
Really?
Ian Thomason's touchdown record. Because a part of it's I don't believe in Brock Purdy, so they are really going to
They're going to do a
really
lot of running.
they're going to do a lot of not even running. They're just going to do so much gadget nonsense around Christian McCaffrey, who I think basically had a touchdown a game once he joined the 49ers.
Oh, yeah.
I could see that amplifying. Um, and my other one is that Calvin Ridley will lead the league in either catches, yards, or touchdown.
Ooh.
I am all in on Calvin Ridley. Dude was basically playing through injuries, hit the entire start of his career, had an entire basically a full year and a half to just rest and regroup. I think he's going to come out swinging.
That, like, Christian McCaffrey breaking the touchdown record's kind of a hot take. Calvin Ridley being the
And
leader,
one of the
especially in a league with people like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, like even like you can argue with like AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs, like to say that it's gonna be Calvin Ridley is bold, and I love it.
Well, here's my thing. He's going to have the Stephon Diggs thing, where it's like get the young quarterback who has shown he can do stuff, but needs like a star wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Toss him in. He's going to be like the funnel guy. He's going to get so much production that will be like, people will be shocked when it happens, but then when it does happen, they'll be like, oh, of course that happened.
Yeah. All right. I feel like we had a solid discussion all around.
Getting our statement of principles out to start the season.
Yeah. And we got a nice pace set. I think if we're doing weekly, we'll have an episode up next week of week 1 nonsense.
Woo!
All right, Carter, send us home.
Thank y'all for watching this episode. We are so excited to finally get the kickoff. And it brings me great delight to be the one to say this on the feed. Ladies and gentlemen, it is football night in America.